All right. Welcome back, guys. Sean here with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Today, we're going to talk about something rather controversial. Something that has always been talked about, but um, never quite in the depth that hopefully I'll be able to kind of walk you guys through. In this hobby, there are like a lot of things, a lot of moving parts within the hobby that kind of make up the totality of numismatics. It used to be just collecting coins. It used to be finding the individual pieces, in their current grade state and putting them into an album. It's like the way that I was taught back in the mid '90s. It actually goes back a little bit further than that. Before I got my first official Whitman trifold blue album. Everybody knows about them. They were sold at bookstores, coin shops, had them, things like that. So we always started with that proverbial 1959 to current date Lincoln Cent album. At the time, for my age, it was a little bit of a challenge. The Jefferson Nickel album, from 1938 to the current date, things like that. Those were like some of the most common albums that we as collectors gravitate towards. Now, I will say this, and I'll echo that kind of standardization of getting into the hobby and say that what we did 30 plus years ago, I think it echoes very true to how we should approach the hobby for getting into it for the very first time. All right. So if you guys are trying to get into hobby, maybe because it's something that you had that heard on social media, on YouTube, or maybe you have a friend or a family member that just in passing brought up that they collect coins, or they have a few coins that they have saved, and so on and so forth, and whatever capacity of that conversation and how it evolves. Maybe it got your kind of like collecting juices flowing, like, ooh, man, collecting money, how awesome is that? It's not a dork sport as it once was 30 years ago. Coin collecting, stacking silver, collecting paper money and currency. It's like one of the coolest things. It's like today the kids, what do they call it? It's the ultimate flex game. When you can sit there and flash $1,000 bill to all your buddies, and here you are, just barely turned 15 years old, and you had the budget to be able to buy that $1,000 Federal Reserve note, which today is like $3,000 to $4,000 at the very minimum. But for a lot of us that are getting into it, you got to find out what your floor is. And oftentimes, as new collectors, we don't know what that is. And that's why, I purposely talk about albums, as kind of like a mainstay in the hobby. And that's why these things are still being produced today. Now, this particular one here just says General Half-Dollar Album. Okay, so it's a 2-page folder. This is an old boy right here. This is a Dansko 2-page album. It's got the little leaflet sheet in the middle. But as you can see, there are 40 total slots between both pages. Quite old. And you can even see the shadowing right here, presumably where the coins have been. And the album, this is what we're talking about today. I had recently acquired a few of the old school Dansko, these things here. Today, I have a friend that has a couple of the what they call Wait Raymond albums. They're the hard kind of cardboardy album pages with the plastic slides in there. The ultimate kind of old school album for toning, and that's the kind of the premise of this video, outside of just kind of like talking to you guys through about collecting in the hobby for the first time. But like what I was getting to at the onset of the video is that there's a myriad of different things in this hobby that could captivate your attention enough where you could very well go to, say, here doing Lincoln Cents, or I could go here start collecting graded coins or filling up albums or what have you. There's so many different options and directions that this could pull you through. So coin grading today is incredibly progressive. It's popular. Grading in any collectible today is absolutely wild. Sports cards, of course, the innovators of grading coins. Coin grading was a thing going all the way back to the early '80s. The old David Hall experiments and the early Annex and things like that. But coin grading, incredibly popular. What's also exacerbated on top of that is kind of like a sub-tier to grading is graded toned silver coins. Graded coins in general, it doesn't matter if it's, I guess, silver. It could be copper as well. Could be nickel. There are some beautifully toned nickels out there that are just nickel composition coins. It's a really deep rabbit hole. And we all have to kind of like, it's more advanced than it looks. For many years and decades, we've referred to toned coins as tarnish. It's a bad thing, right? We have our full setting of stainless, forks and spoons and, all that great stuff. The old silverware that's been passed down like a dozen times. When they turn that dark black color, and you see Grandma over there with the spit shine cloth and that silver polish paste, just going to work on it to get rid of that toning. It was, in all the sense of the word, a bad thing. All right. But today, the eye of the beholder kind of speech and conversation when it comes to toning has turned quite a bit. It's artistic. People pay a massive amount of money for a lot of these pieces. But, through it all, there's still that kind of conversation like, how did it all get started? What's considered legitimate toning that's been done naturally through years of just whatever, time produces some of the most stunning toning. It goes all the way back to when a lot of the old Morgan and silver dollars were put into bank vaults in these old canvas bags, and they sat there through the ebbs and flows of cold and heat temperature and the fluctuation thereof. And that is in a way, kind of like one of the more attractive type of toning, like this one here. You have the crescent, and then you have this area which is much lighter, which means there is a coin sitting on top of that. And then all of this toning action occurred because of its proximity to the canvas material of that bag, which I'm going to assume that, for many years and decades that they've added like dyes and, various other chemicals to them to help promote some of the sulfur reaction to the coins in those GSA holdings. So that is probably, as far as constructive kind of like direction as to where kind of like the starting point of where toning became such a popular thing and where it all started was from the GSA, the Government Services Administration, aka the Fed Reserve, had tons of these in bank vaults. All right, and then they ended up selling them. They had Carson Cities that they had put in special holders, and these particular coins, they ended up sending them back to the banking system. People could have came to the Fed Reserve and bought them, in groups, for whatever price. And this was like during the 60s and 70s. So it was like really a good time to kind of jump on board. And at the time, during the late 70s, early 80s, people were beginning to see kind of like that beauty, but it was still met with a lot of skepticism. All right. And that's the big reason why that today I am on this video, is to do something incredibly skeptical, incredibly controversial, and try and figure out this whole toning business. Was the GSA option of the original coins the only kind of direction to where a true blue, beautiful original tone. I like that picture there where the light just kind of like from the window. All right, but the back is blast white. This is one I had sent to CAC myself. It's why like one of my prides and joys. But you know, is the GSA Horde the only way to source what we call market acceptable natural toning? And I'm here to say that we are going to do it in the name of science. We're going to experiment. And that's where kind of the controversy is that, you know, there have been many attempts at faking toning for kind of a market gain. Like I have the Silver Eagle right here with probably one of the most unnatural tonings that you could possibly ever come across. There's always a progression of color when it comes to toning, starting very light with your yellows and golds and things like that. And it progresses, you know, further down the line. You get into the magentas, and then you start to turn to like blue and green, and then it becomes terminal after that point. You know, we always refer to like really dark brown and black toning as terminal. It doesn't matter how you freaking rename it or nickname it. You know, some people use the word russet brown, like a friggin' potato, like a russet potato. But at the end of the day, it's terminal. It's like your only way out of the terminal toning is to dip it, and then that's it. You know, you're just left with a blast white coin with virtually just the most mid of market values that you could ever ask for. So, you know, there have been other coins that were toned throughout the course of history by other means, right? It's like, you know, you have a coin that was sitting in an old, like, small little manila envelope. You know, they're like yellow in color, and then after time they fade to almost a white. You know, those things are socked in there. And then, of course, you know, those particular envelopes had your dyes and your chemicals and fillers and things like that. It's like we're talking about fucking hot dogs here. Sorry about the language, by the way. The being in a hobby for almost 30 years kind of has that effect on you. Like you you know, you want to be a little bit more raw in your presentation. I do apologize about that. But you know, there are natural tonings that come out of albums. Okay, we had talked about the Wade Raymond, which I'm going to be picking up this afternoon. But these particular albums right here, the old school Danskos, these were from about the mid 70s. All right, if you look here, this is what they used to call them, the Daniel Stamp Company. Dansko, for short, is the Daniel Stamp Company. If you looked at the name right there, you could see kind of like the shortened, abbreviated version of saying that all three words of that company name. So these are the original OG, old school, first gen. They're right there, you know, as far as age is concerned, with like the Library of Coins albums, which are quite old. Those are 1960s to 70s. These are right there around 1970 to 75. These right here, this is going to be the catalyst for going to be kind of like a summer long kind of experiment. What we're going to do with the silver album, the silver dollar album, these were intended to fit Morgan and Peace dollars, trade dollars if you have them. Trade dollars, I would never experiment with that because, you know, they're scarce. Not quite scarce, but scarce enough in a way that AU and BU coins, which is obviously what we're going to use for the experiment here, you know, are quite expensive. So spending $1,000 for a blast white trade dollar that's all original, maybe it's graded, like in AU 58 or Mid State 62, is going to set you back about $1,000. Okay, not cheap. So we're going to use Morgan and Peace dollars for this experiment, and you know, we've also heard from various people and professionals in the hobby that these older albums, after a while, they'll lose their sulfur content in them. So I'm like, great, let's go ahead and test that out. We're not going to do anything special. We're not going to spritz the inside with water to kind of activate shit. It doesn't work, I would assume. But no, we were just going to put in probably about a dozen coins in the album. As you can tell, it's got lots of play in there. And we're going to test the theory through the course of 6 months. We are going to start on this in February, and then we're going to take this out in August and then see where we're at. All right. Is there going to be any toning whatsoever? Are they still going to be blast white coins? By the way, we're going to be dealing specifically with kind of like median, kind of mid-state 62, 63 level coins, coins that traditionally don't have an entirely ridiculous premium, but coins that we could use for this. So that's going to be experiment number 1. Experiment number 2, we're going to try and test out the canvas bag theory, okay? And one of the challenging bits to this is to find an old canvas bag, that has kind of like a date period of 60 to 70 years. And I think we should be in good shape. And what we're going to do is we're going to put about 20 of these BU mortgage piece dollars in the bag, and we're going to test the theory. And we're actually going to do the same 6-month kind of experimentation. Again, this is for science. The coins that come out of this will just go back into my collection. I don't know what the expectation is other than I have none. Because what I'm asking for to replicate what we have here in 6 months is actually kind of a tall task. It doesn't matter if I take these and I put them in my outside, I have a backyard, whatchamacallit, small little storage thing that's kept all, under lock and key. It just has like lawnmower and stuff like that, but we also have like, stuff that we store in there. So, it gets really hot here in Northern California. We get those 100, 105 degree temperatures all throughout the summer. That'll be a good catalyst to see if maybe a little bit of heat would kind of activate some of the old sulfur in these albums. So we're going to test this out. And at the end, I want to see results. 6 months, again, tall task considering that coins like this, they tone after like 5-6 decades or longer. For as long as those coins have been sitting in bank vaults this whole time, is it reasonable to expect the same color as what we did back, 70, 80, 90 years ago? Probably not. But in the course of trying to see how quickly coins turn, again, experimentation, because they, at the end of the day, this might have other applications, in assisting us of what we're seeing here. Quite possibly, it might change the way that we store our coins, which has always been another topic in itself. Especially for you folks that live in the southeast region of the U.S., where it's very hot and humid, 75% of the year. So we're going to try this out. We're going to try out the canvas bag experiment, see where we're at on there. We're going to do both, kind of coincide together. I'm anticipating I'm going to put these somewhere probably like February 15th. It's still very cool here in Northern California. We have our 30-degree mornings, and then, it gets up to about 60 degrees during the day. And that same is going to hold true going through to mid-February. So we're going to see what we can do here on these. Again, the coins are not going to be readily available for sale, nor am I going to sell any of them. These are my personal experiments that I wanted to test out. I have a number of albums that we're going to use. I even have one with quarters. Liberty had quarters, but we could put regular Washington quarters in there. BU Washington quarters is actually still pretty easy to get, and not paying a terrible amount of money for it. So we'll test that out. I'll let you guys know. Again, the second part to this video won't occur until September or August or whenever. Probably end of August, right before kids go back to school, is where we'll see the results for these. And it's still going to be hot here in Northern California. We're still going to have our 100-degree temperatures in August pretty regularly. So I don't know. Wish me luck. Let's see how these things fare. Is 6 months too short of a time to expect anything? These are some of the questions that I've always had, even though I've been in the business for 30 years. I just don't know how to replicate natural toning if it came down to it, where you need the duration. And if the duration isn't there, you're going to expect to get more of the things that people have homegrown in their in their, home by simply putting the coin next to an egg in the oven, because it produces the sulfur, draws the sulfur off the egg and attaches it to the silver. Like silver eagles I'm highly skeptical to some of the crazy, insane toning that you see on silver eagles. But there are a few that I know that have been kind of natural based off of some of the holders that they sat in, like the old H.E. Harris holders from back around 99, 2000, were full of sulfur and produced some pretty wild and crazy toning on silver eagles. But anyways, that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of test this theory out. Thank you guys again for all of your views and support. I don't know what to expect, but we're all going to learn through this, see where we're at, and then kind of go from there. All right, you guys take care. Happy hunting, happy collecting, and I will see you next time. Not in 6 months, but we'll have other videos, of course, between now and then. So I'll see you guys later. So long.